Hello, this is the promised follow-up to my video a few days ago on the way my FOI requests were being dealt with, so I can do my job and make public what has been going on in the Cabinet Office, the Department of Home Affairs and the Department of Health and Social Care over very important matters surrounding particularly the 13th to the 24th of March 2020. As mentioned, I have been stalled by both the Cabinet Office and DHSC, who, after almost leaving it to the last possible date to reply, came back to say they needed even more time to deal with my requests. But just hours after the video went out, I did get a reply from the Department of Home Affairs saying they did not hold the information I was referring to, which would likely be they'd be applying for a practical refusal reason on the request under Section 11.3a of the Act, information not held. Anyway, to provide with advice and assistance, the DHA said they did hold an email from the 16th of March 2020 which contained reference to versions of the presentation supplied to Dan Davis. And it said, please confirm how you wish to proceed with this request. But surely that's the information they said they didn't have. And how to proceed? Well, release me the information so we can see what it says. Anyway, as promised, I'm now going to put in the public domain what I've been asked to ask these three government departments. It's very detailed. You have to give as little wriggle room as possible to hopefully get an answer, so bear with me. Here we go. The following FOI questions were intended to elicit information to establish how medical and clinical advice from Dr Ranson and others was handled by Minister Ashford and senior civil servants, and whether selective and or toned down versions were in fact presented to them, to the then Chief Minister and Comyn in the period 13th to the 24th of March 2020. Although precisely how and to the extent of which Dr Ranson and the Senior Advisory Medical Group advice had been advanced through the command structure was not relevant to the tribunal, this information nevertheless remains a matter of acute national importance. On the 26th of May 2021, Dr Ranson gave evidence to the Tynwald Public Accounts Committee about a press conference on the morning of Friday the 13th of March 2020, as reported in Hansard. This is just some of what Dr Ranson said then. The press conference highlighted a number of significant concerns for me. The Chief Secretary had given the advice to move to Public Health England delay. The decision to follow Public Health England to delay had been taken without any advice from me as DHSC Medical Director or the clinical group, because we knew that the Director of Public Health was on holiday. So, I'm now asking for the following information to be released. Please provide a copy of the advice to move to Public Health England's delay given by Will Greenhow, the Chief Secretary to Minister and to Mr Ashford on the morning of Friday the 13th of March 2020. And was Miss Magson involved in the giving of that evidence? 2. Please confirm the names of the departmental CEOs present at the meeting of the National Strategy Group on Friday the 13th of March 2020. And especially, was Dan Davis, the CEO of the Department of Home Affairs, in attendance? By the way, full disclosure, there was a typo in my FOI which said he was CEO of Health, but I trust the government won't hold me up on that one for not actually eventually answering this question. Anyway, please supply a copy of the minutes recorded of the meeting in addition to the Dr Ranson presentation and the modelling referred to in paragraph 176 of the tribunal decision. 3. Please confirm whether any of the department CEOs had forwarded the whole or any part of Dr Ranson presentation and modelling dated Friday the 13th of March 2020 to any other persons within the government command structure. And if so, in each case please disclose by who, to whom, the whole or which part or parts, and when together with any other commentary thereon. 4. Please supply a copy of Dr Ranson's email and attached PowerPoint presentation sent to Minister Ashford at 15:25 on Friday the 13th of March 2020. 5. Please supply a copy of any phone, Teams, messaging or email communications between Minister Ashford and or Miss Magson and or Will Greenhow and or Dan Davis between Friday the 13th of March and Monday the 16th of March 2020 inclusive, in which reference is made to the whole or any part of the context of Dr Ranson's email at 15:25 on Friday the 13th of March 2020. 6. Please supply a copy of Dr Ranson's email and attached PowerPoint presentation sent to Ms Magson just after midnight on the morning of Monday the 16th of March 2020 for Ms Magson to use when briefing Comyn later that day. 7. The tribunal has made a finding of fact that Ms Magson did not use Dr Ranson's updated presentation sent on the 16th of March 2020 when setting out DHSC advice to Comyn. So please provide a copy of the presentation and materials setting out the medical and clinical advice which Ms Maxson actually used instead to present to Komen that day, together with the minutes of that Komen meeting. 8. Reference being made in the media to email communication on or about Sunday the 15th of March 2020 involving Dan Davis, Will Greenhow, Mark Lewin, Catherine Maxson and Coldrick Randall, all which in a toned down version of the presentation and modelling that was circulated. So please provide a copy of this email and any associated presentation slides. Please confirm whether any of this material was wholly or partly used in the Maxson presentation to Komen on the 16th of March 2020. 9. Please specify the medical or clinical professional accreditation, if any, held by Dan Davis, Will Greenhow, Mark Lewin, Catherine Maxson and Coldrick Randall, which may qualify them to A. recommend following Public Health England's delay on the 13th of March 2020, or B. later change or modify the contents of the medical or clinical advice from Dr Ranson and the senior medical leadership team emailed by Dr Ranson for presentation to Komen. 10. Please confirm that Minister Ashford was present at Komen throughout the Maxson presentation on the 16th of March 2020. Sent some notes also along with this to make sure I was able to get a reply without any more dodging around. So notes of information I sent. None of the information sought is sub judice as the Ranson DHSC Equalities and Employment Tribunal case is now complete, and the DHSC and the Ranson High Court appeals have both been dismissed. So there remains no active proceedings in the sense of Contempt of Court Act 1981 UK. Also, as none of the information sought can possibly be construed as containing legal advice, then no legal professional privilege claim can conceivably be made or sustained. The public interest in these events is high, especially as the unfair dismissal of Dr Ranson has cost the Manx taxpayer nearly £3.2 million in damages awards plus substantial legal costs to be ascertained on the indemnity basis. Furthermore, the tribunal findings have led directly to Catherine Maxson, Karen Malone and Will Greenhow and others suddenly leaving their senior positions in the Manx government at additional substantial termination costs to the Manx taxpayer. The unconstitutional and for many watching these proceedings oppressive behaviour of the DHSC, Isle of Man government generally and the AG, including continued failure to conduct standard disclosure and advancing a defence based upon unsustainable lies, in this case resulted in the rare awards of exemplary damages. Also, very importantly, the public are acutely aware that events surrounding the onset of COVID may have also had a bearing upon the tragedy that took place at Abbots Wood that led to DHSC appointing Expol to investigate in April 2020. Expol subsequently recommended that police investigate a number of suspects on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter, and that was not disposed of until June 2021 when the proposed gross negligence manslaughter charges were finally dropped. The interventions by DHSC at the direction of Catherine Maxson has resulted in significant loss and harm endured by residents, staff and management of Abbots Wood. The families of those who lost their lives deserve transparency and answers on the genesis of that tragedy. From the partial information already in the public domain, it appears that the initial government response to the approaching COVID threat on the 13th of March 2020 was based upon advice from Will Greenhow, who has neither sought nor received any professional medical clinical advice from the responsible medical officers within the Isle of Man government. Then, when a medical and clinical presentation recommending closing the borders and lockdown was sent by Dr Ranson on the 13th to 16th of March 2020, it was either ignored or toned down by a group of departmental CEOs for consumption by Komen. The time for any political motivated point-by-point rebuttal, as promised by the then Minister Ashford, are long since gone. Instead, the public interest overwhelmingly lies in the disclosure of the requested documents on a full and frank basis, so investigative reporters can publish an accurate, non-political, non-partisan record of these very important events in the Isle of Man. There is the FOI that's been looked at now. That's it for the three departments in government. Basically, to sum this up, surely there's never been a better time for a total mind shift in government departments to hold their hands up and admit where things have gone wrong by releasing the information that I've requested, which could be seen, therefore, the Isle of Man closing its borders 11 days earlier and potentially shielding us from that initial COVID outbreak and the deaths that followed. A reminder that during a radio interview on 17th of June 2022, so almost exactly a year ago, the Chief Minister, Alf Cannon, said there was a need for change following Dr Ranson's tribunal findings. Cultural issues within the civil service needed to be reformed and changed in the next 12 months. Well, here we are, 12 months on, but still the culture on my FOIs, particularly here, are being dealt with. There's been no change at all. Of course, I do have the final course of action to go to the Information Commissioner, who will decide if the information by the three departments that they're holding can be released to the Manx public. That'll happen in time. This situation is of the highest importance to many to show that the Isle of Man has good governance. Without that, where does it leave the Isle of Man on the world stage? We need action, not empty words. If the government cannot or will not comply with these legal duties to disclose documents of Dr Ranson or the press under FOI, then what chance will Cape Runner, KC and also the KC to be appointed to the latest review have to getting to the truth? After all, as I understand it, they don't even have the legal powers to force disclosure or compel witnesses to appear. We need the Isle of Man government to honour its legal duty and provide that information.